My name is Sara, and I have a great episode in store for you guys today. So originally, I was planning on picking up where I left off with the last episode, which was telling my life story in chronological order. And where we were going to pick up was getting into my coma dreams, waking up from my coma in the hospital, and then my experiences in the hospital for 3 months. However, after I posted last week's episodes, my life has just been in such a portal of transformation that I felt like I could not talk about it, and that I had to share basically what I've gone through the past week since posting the first episode of this podcast. And as I mentioned in the last episode, the idea for this podcast was seeded within me way back in the winter of 2018. And I didn't even really know what a podcast was back then, but I always had a knowing within me that it was going to be a big part of my path. And I have definitely seen that since just posting just the first episode, because, and it's crazy, it feels like it's been a month since that. Like, it's only been 1 week. I posted it 1 week ago today, because I'm filming this on Friday. And just the events that have transpired have been so transformational. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And I have gotten so much amazing feedback from that last episode, and I'm so grateful for all of my followers and family members and friends who listened to that first episode and who shared in my story with me and just shared how much it impacted them and how it made them feel. And there were also some people who who attacked me for publishing the podcast, subtly, by stirring the pot and by basically stirring up drama and getting other people against me and doing all of that stuff. But it really helped me to see that I did actually share some things from an unhealed perspective. However, I do see the value in me sharing, even if I was or was not fully healed through a lot of these experiences, because it brought so much healing about as a result of me sharing. Because a lot of that stuff that I shared about when I was in high school and the suffering that I experienced, it really triggered a lot of people who really did not want to see how badly I suffered, and maybe that they had a part in that suffering. But I was able to see that because I wasn't fully healed and integrated, and because all of this karma from my high school years was not cleared, sharing my perspective and kind of where I've been at with it the past few years has really, really helped me to clear that karma and to attract the situations to my life that would actually bring healing and bring completion to those experiences. Because some people, as I mentioned, did stir the pot and were not happy with the way I spoke about things. However, that was my truth, and I did suffer a lot during this time, sometimes due to my own perspectives. And I see that now. I see that I perceived that a lot of what was going on was personal and was directed at me. But now I'm able to see that a lot of those who hurt me and those who were kind of involved in my suffering, they were suffering as well. And none of us really knew how to regulate our emotions or how to deal with that or how to confront that pain that we were all in, because a lot of it felt so out of our control and was so just shocking and jarring. And I feel like understanding the suffering that my family members were also going through has helped a lot. And I am forever so grateful for the family members that came forward and had the courage to lean into that tension and to have those conversations with me and to share what they were going through, and to also not gaslight me and not deny how I was feeling. Even though I was involved in a lot of fragmented perspectives and I was unhealed in a lot of ways, there was just so much that I didn't know. And so I was left sort of to my own mind to make up my own stories and to assume what I thought was going on, because I just did not understand this pain and this suffering and this unconsciousness that was being sort of projected at me by some. And although all of this has created so much healing for me, I will not deny how much I did suffer in those times. And I will not deny how other people made me feel just to keep them comfortable, and just because it makes them uncomfortable with how much pain I was in. And so for all of that, I am very, very grateful. And I now understand the feelings of others, and that we oftentimes, when we feel like we are at the victim of our circumstances, or that we are being oppressed by others, or that others are abusing us, those abusers or those perpetrators, they are almost always suffering themselves and are trying to deal with that suffering the best ways they can, which comes out in a lot of projection. And I understand that now. And it feels like, because of these conversations that I had, that I have now put that chapter to rest. And so I am grateful that I had the courage to share that, even if it made people act in very fragmented and selfish ways. Meaning, I think that because other people did not want to take responsibility for how they made me feel, or for their part in my experiences, they have sort of doubled down on their own selfish actions. Meaning, they rallied their troops and they spread stories that my whole podcast was talking bad about one particular person, where it was not. And I was only talking about these unhealed family dynamics for a very short period during that first episode. And so many people really made it all about themselves and used that to their own advantage to create more separation, and to really, what it felt like, turn a lot of people against me. Again, because they cannot accept their own negative actions and their own wrongdoings, and the fact that they did some very selfish things that hurt others. And so with that, we leave it at that. And we open to the next episode, which I just really wanted to share some other things that I've learned throughout this past week. So every single day has felt like a death and rebirth process for me the past week. It has felt like such a portal of transformation that I have been moving through. And one thing that these experiences have done for me is it has shown me where I was still rooted in victim mentality, and where I was still seeing myself as a victim of circumstance, and seeing myself within these dynamics of victim and perpetrator. And it has really shown me how we as humans, when we are fragmented or unconscious or operating predominantly out of our ego, we will attract experiences that help us to kind of rise above that, and to help us see where we are still playing the victim and where we are still placing the blame on others. Because that does not take away from other people's actions and how other people's actions make us feel. However, I do believe that we attract these actions to teach ourselves about life, to help ourselves learn more about others, and to help us expand within our own being. Because I now see that all these experiences that I attracted to myself, where I was sort of a victim and I was treated unfairly, but it was so that it is what led eventually to my spiritual awakening. Like, all of this pain and this suffering that I have been working through from this high school period has been what I've really been working through throughout my spiritual awakening. And it's taught me about somatics and somatic healing, about nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, all of these such valuable tools and healing modalities that were not given in our mainstream lifestyle. And I could go into that. I probably will go into that in this episode. We'll see, because that's a big theme that has also come up for me. However, I do just really want to say that when we see ourselves in victim mentality, and when we're constantly seeing these oppressors and these abusers and these people in our reality who are putting us down and who are causing us suffering, I invite us all to look within and see where we are upholding that dynamic within ourselves. Because if you see yourself as a victim, you're always going to be pointing the finger outside. However, maybe you attracted those situations purposefully in your life so as to bring you closer to people, or so as to put up boundaries so that you can understand your worth and what you do and do not have to tolerate. Because oftentimes when we feel like we are a victim, it's because we're giving our power away too much to people externally, which we are very much programmed to do. Like, we're programmed to give all of our power away to authority, to listen to whatever authority is telling us, and that we are the victim of our circumstances, that things are happening to hurt us and harm us. But that is just one perspective. And the more you step into higher consciousness and the more you connect with your soul, the more you do see sort of the bigger picture and the grand scheme of things, which is that we are all co-creators and we are all sovereign beings. And it is often through our pain and our suffering and our challenges that our true gifts and our true power comes alive. Because yes, we have been put through these systems, these societal systems that have programmed us and totally taken our power away and made us feel like we are nothing and like we are in debt to these jobs and to these other people, and that we have to live our lives a certain way because it is what it is. And I get it. We've created this society built on money, and money has been power throughout our society the past few thousands of years. But what if that is not the only way to do things? And what if through awakening to our shadows and seeing where we've been giving our power away and recognizing our true power, the power to choose, the power to be alive, what if that when we do reclaim this power and we see these dynamics, we're able to heal and we're able to release these old systems and create totally new systems that are built on sustainability and empowerment and serving life. Because I also do feel like this is one of the points that I really wanted to make in this video. I feel like so many of us have normalized toxic behavior, and that this is a very big theme that all of humanity is moving through at this time. That so many of us have normalized behaviors that are actually toxic for both ourselves and for those around us. I mean, how many of us have totally normalized drinking alcohol when it is literally a poison and it does not serve any aspect of the human being at all? Maybe it can help you loosen up and have some fun every now and again, but how have we normalized doing these things day after day after day, not facing the fact that it is actually making us unhealthy and it is actually causing us to act in ways that do not actually serve us or anyone around us? And another example would be normalizing desensitization of ourselves and normalizing having dysregulated nervous systems and emotional bodies. Because I feel like we're also taught to not be sensitive, and that our sensitivity is our downfall, and that we have to numb our feelings because what else are we going to do? I mean, the majority of our society is built upon the foundation that emotions are not safe and that you have to escape them and numb them at any cost. That's why you have dispensaries on every single street corner now, and why there's alcohol or liquor stores and bars and, drug clinics and, your fellow neighborhood primary care doctors. Part of their job is to prescribe drugs to numb what you're feeling without even asking about your lifestyle or your actions or the choices you're making every day. And so I invite us all to not remain in this victim-perpetrator dynamic, not to continue pointing the fingers and blaming everything externally. Instead, I invite us to take our power back and see where we have given our power away to all of these doctors and all of these teachers and all of these authority figures that we see on TV who have presented us with this reality and with this lifestyle that is not sustainable and that does not serve us long term. And as always, take what resonates and leave what does not. I'm not here trying to preach that I know the truth and that I know, what's up. However, I've really seen how the more we give our power away and normalize toxic behavior and normalize just not asking questions, that's where we get ourselves into these nasty addictions and into these very emotionally dysregulated states of being. So yeah, I invite us all to really just question where you're giving your power away. Do you see yourself as a sovereign, empowered being who is the creator of their reality and who is in control of what does and does not affect you? Because another theme that I have really learned this week is truly how much I was hyper fixated on controlling my reality. And this was largely because I did not feel safe. And I mean, when you see a lot of the experiences of my childhood and then what I went through throughout my accident, it makes sense why one would not feel safe and why one would want to control everything around them, because everything was so dangerous and toxic and I would say just uncontrollable and random and unknown. And that really scares the ego. And when we are operating predominantly within egoic consciousness, our primary focus is to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves within the realm of what is known and what is familiar, and that is all rooted in survival. Our ego's primary role in our lives is to help us survive and to be that separate aspect of the whole. So it serves a purpose, and it's not like we want to totally shut down the ego, turn it off, kill the ego, ego death, that stuff. However, you do want to understand when you are primarily operating and reacting from that egoic state of being, because it will always keep you cycling through what you did yesterday and what's safe, and it will always keep you within what is familiar and keep you striving for survival. And humanity has been kept within a state, a consciousness state of survival and of fragmentation and just egoic separation for thousands of years. And this has all been in divine timing, because the past 12,000 years, we have also been in a period of unconsciousness, because our universe goes through equal cycles of light and dark, consciousness and unconsciousness, and it was about 12,000 years ago that we fell from our heightened state of consciousness. And you hear a lot about this within the tales of Atlantis and Lemuria, and pretty much what happened was humanity asserted its egoic consciousness and its force and dominance too much over the natural order of life and of the natural flow of things. And because of our self-serving, selfish, egoic tendencies and actions, we fell from consciousness and fell back into our primal roots of unconsciousness. And this is why we've seen a lot of that hunter-gatherer primal states of consciousness within our human past and within our history. But since the past, I'd say 100 years or so, and primarily since 2012, we have been rising out of that unconsciousness. So this is all not something that has to be fought or forced. It is all happening in divine timing. However, it is up to us to step out of that unconsciousness, to reclaim our sovereignty and our power, and to really move beyond the suffering and these cycles of familiarity and survival that we have been both keeping ourselves in and being kept in. Because I do believe that the powers that be, or the powers that were, know about this rise in consciousness and this expansion period that we have entered in. And these beings have been doing whatever they can to sort of stifle that growth and that expansion and to keep us from rising into our consciousness again. And that's why you see a lot of these controlled oppositions and these problem, reaction, solution experiences going on to keep us within the matrix and to keep us within this pointing the finger and, oh, victim oppressor, the world is unsafe, I have no power, it is what it is. We've been purposely kept within these dynamics so that we can be controlled and so that everything stays the way it has been. However, we are awakening regardless, and you can see that because even people who have been so asleep within the matrix and so asleep within these systems of oppression, even they are starting to wake up and starting to question things, kind of turning away from the news, not taking everything at face value, and really just asking questions. Because I truly do believe how we get from here to there, how we enter into this new earth and this new world and really step away from these shadow states of consciousness, is through asking questions. Questioning the systems that we've been growing up in, questioning what we've been fed and the information that's been shoved down our throats, and questioning what we've been told to be true. Because when you question things, it really shows you that there is so much more to life, and that when you are just sort of on that hamster wheel of familiarity and routine, it really just keeps you cycling through just that realm of known. And it's almost like we've been walking through life blindfolded. And when you remove the blindfold, you start to see the dynamics for what they are. And I feel like that has been my life the past week, is that I was really kind of cycling through my own hamster wheel of trying to figure out why I felt so dysregulated and why I was suffering so much, why I've been so suicidal since 8th grade, just really questioning why I have been feeling this way. And after filming and after having that conversation with my family member, it really opened me up to just a totally new beginning. And it's so crazy because this conversation happened on September 7th, which is a very significant day for me and my life path. Because one reason, because a family member from the past who was very special to me and many of my family members, she passed years and years ago, like 18 or 19 years ago, but her birthday was on September 7th. And Babe was her name, and Babe has been such a special and such a loving spirit guide for us. And even before that, she was such a special human being, especially to my mother. And so her birthday was September 7th. And then Mac Miller passed away on September 7th in 2018. And that day is the day that catalyzed my spiritual awakening. I was actually able to track it back because the night before Mac Miller passed away in 2018, my friend and I sat in our little spot. We called it the spot. We sat in my grandmother's car and we listened to every Mac Miller song there was, just randomly. And I'm getting such goosebumps as I'm saying this. I love it. But we sat and we listened to even his Larry Fisherman stuff, which is his music that he released under another name. We listened to his SoundCloud music that wasn't like officially released, and all of his albums. And we listened to his music until like 3 a.m. Just for no reason. Just we just both really were enjoying ourselves. So we literally sat there and listened to this music until 3 a.m. And then the next day, I was at work at a nursing home, and I get the news that Mac Miller passed away. And I will never forget the shock, but also the spiritual energy that was just rushing through my being. I mean, even I have full body chills as I'm saying it, because I was like, holy crap, I listened to every one of his songs last night. And then now, in the next day, he passed. And at that time, I was really getting a lot into a lot of conspiracy theories and a lot of stories of truth. And I found out that was the day that Tupac was shot. And that, that was a whole theory that really expanded my consciousness and helped me to see that, like, there's a lot more that's going on in this world. And that's a whole other story that will probably be its own episode in and of itself. But this day, September 7th, has just been a significant day for me. And every day since then, because I can even look back in past years and it was always an expansion point on that day throughout the years. And so this September 7th was truly the day that catalyzed, I feel like, another awakening for me and was a complete reset point. And since that day, September 7th, 2024, last week, has been just, I have entered a period of disillusionment and of true removing of the blindfold and peering beyond the veil that was my own egoic consciousness and was my own separation consciousness. And just, it all just began just a new chapter of my life. And so because I've had the courage to really lean into this tension over the past week and to just let these illusions fall away and totally surrender to just trust in what is and just into full presence, because of that, I have cultivated so much gratitude. And I feel like I've been able to see how all of these experiences of suffering and all of these pains and these challenges and these wounds, they have all led to my expansion at some point, whether it's in that moment or later in my life. I do believe that all of our challenges do hold within them the seed for our greatest gifts. And I have truly been able to see that my gifts could not come online and I could not go through my spiritual awakening if it was not for such pressure and so much pain and suffering and turmoil that has been caused in my life. And so for that, I have been able to fully forgive all of those who have hurt me and who have caused me perceived pain in my life. And through that forgiveness, I've been able to really open myself up to new forms of connection and to new forms of understanding of these people and their gifts and their life story and their life path. Because I do believe that all have gifts within us that are activated when we lean into tension and when we face our fears and move forward with an open heart and with good intentions and move forward into service of the whole. Because all of us, we do all have selfish tendencies in our lives, and especially when we are in survival mode, a lot of the focus of our lives is just meeting our basic needs and doing whatever we can to survive and to make it to the next day. But when we start to shift our consciousness and we sit with that tension and we step into full presence, we're really able to step more into our gifts and to see the gift of the situation and to see the gift that that person holds and the gift that that person was giving us through our power struggles and through our challenges. So one example that I want to bring up. When I was younger, starting in elementary school, my vision started to deteriorate. And it's interesting because I have really noticed that when my childhood trauma really began is when my eyesight really started to go. I remember in 5th grade, because that's when things really did start to change for me. And I think that a part of it was rooted in that, I was everything to my father because I was an only child. And then he got remarried, and all of a sudden I had to share this attention and my resources with a step sibling and a stepmother and a new sibling who was on their way. And so I feel like because my little childhood brain did not understand this, it really started to fragment my consciousness, and I really took it as oh, I'm not good enough anymore, I'm not worthy. And so that's how my perspectives tied into a lot of these dynamics. And now, were there actions taken that were not right and that did contribute to my pain? Yes. However, I feel like everyone was doing the best they could with the level of consciousness that they had. And the more I do start to see that, the more it really brings forgiveness and clears the energy. But going back to the story about my eyesight, I didn't get glasses until I was in 8th grade because my parents said that I didn't need them, that I was faking, and that I wanted to get glasses because my friends were getting them and yada yada. And they actually did take me to get my eyes checked, and that eye doctor did actually tell them that if I got glasses, there was a risk that it would make my eyesight worse. And so because of that, they didn't want to make my life worse, so they decided they weren't going to get me glasses. However, my eyesight continued to get worse and worse, and this was creating so much suffering for me. Like, I remember being in 7th and 8th grade and the beginning of 9th grade and not being able to see the board and being so horrified because I was too embarrassed to speak up and to sit in front of in the front of the class, because who the heck wants to sit right in front of the class? No one. And I was too embarrassed to speak up, and this just really created such a survival state of being within me. Like, I remember, because if I couldn't see the board and if I couldn't accurately take notes, if I was called on to answer a question, I couldn't answer that question. And it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention, it was because I couldn't see the freaking board, and I couldn't do it. And so luckily for me, I oftentimes would be seated next to amazing souls and amazing friends who would let me copy off their notes. And so very, very grateful for these friends who helped me out during this time. However, throughout my life and throughout the years, I have really been able to see that because of this challenge in my childhood, because I had to get so good at listening, and because one sense was being diminished, I do believe that my other senses as a result heightened. So because I can't see very well in this realm, I can actually see very well into the other realms. And that's why I am so good at my Akashic Records readings and mediumship and psychic readings. And so that challenge of not being able to see has, as a result, led to the activation of my gifts of inner sight and of my gifts of being able to listen. Because I always say now that because I couldn't see the board, I got so good at listening. So now I can watch my YouTube videos and watch my podcasts and watch things like Ancient Aliens and documentaries. And I have gotten so good at taking notes just by listening in a very fast way. And that's another gift of mine. So this is just one example of how our greatest challenges and sometimes the things that cause us the greatest suffering will actually activate and awaken our greatest gifts at some point in our lives, even if we don't see it then. So that is one way that I have really been able to alchemize a lot of this pain and trauma, is through seeing the gifts that it has activated as a result. This disillusionment that I have been moving through the past week has, every single day has really shown me where I was really trying to control my reality and where I was really clinging to these fantasies that seemed right and seemed realistic. However, I see that a lot of these fantasies and these realities that I've been upholding within my being, they were as a means to try and control my reality. And they were a way to try to create a very predictable and safe life, because I've dealt with so much unknown and so much mystery, and I really just wanted to kind of maintain a firm grip over life. And I've seen that over the past year, when a lot of my inner agitation and all these emotions within me would rise up, it would always really manifest as a very constricted state of being. Like, if I really were to tune into it, I would just feel like this, just very constricted. And I've really realized that it's because I was trying so hard to control my life and my reality, because I did not feel safe. And because of my ability to lean into the tension when I was having this conversation with my family member last Saturday, which it wasn't a horrible, that conversation was so healing and so amazing, and was one of the best moments of my life, because we got through all of the pain within the first hour or so of our conversation on this day, September 7th, like I mentioned. And then we were able to open up and talk about so much more about who we are and how we see life and how we've been navigating life, the past year or so. And it was just so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I have really, really been able to see that when you lean into tension and when you face the fear and have courage, that you have everything you need to get to the other side of that fear. Like when my family member first called me and said they were going to come pick me up and have a conversation with me at 9:00 at night, that was like my biggest fear realized. And I didn't even really know why and whatever, but I just knew that I had the courage to get to the other side of this. And that if this is what I really want to do, that if I really want to be a podcaster and, speak my truth and eventually speak on stages, that I have to have the courage to know that I have everything I need to get through every experience in front of me. And that taught me that I do truly have everything I need to get through everything in life. And because of that, it's given me this newfound state of surrender and has almost entirely eradicated the fear that I held within me. Because fear is what leads us to want to control things. And fear is what really constricts us and holds us back and keeps us within that survival mode, within the ego, and wanting to keep ourselves within what is known. And so when you eradicate that fear through having courage and through stepping through that danger, that perceived danger, and just going into the fear instead of hiding from it, you come out on the other side a new person. And I have heard so much as I've been moving through this process this week that your new life will cost you your old one. And that is the most profound truth that I have realized, that this new life that I have been dreaming of stepping into over the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years or so, this dream life has as I've been simultaneously stepping into it, it has cost me my old life and all of these old survival mechanisms and egoic programmings and ways of taking action in the world that do not resonate with this new life that I'm building. And so I feel like I realized that part of the reason why I was trying to control life was because I was so afraid. I was so afraid of the unpredictability of life and the unknown of life. However, life is unpredictable. Mic drop. Life is very unknown and uncertain, and we cannot spend our lives trying to cling to certainty and trying to cling to control, because it just leaves us living such a fragmented and such a fear-based and diminished life. And I mean, we all are the creators of our reality, and we all have the capability to choose what we would like to experience and who we would like to be. However, there is another path available for us, and that path opens up when we just lean into and accept the unknown and accept the mystery and just be with it. And also, I feel like that comes when we are able to really see and feel within ourselves that we do have the courage to face off with whatever life brings our way. That any of the experiences that life is bringing us, it is being brought to us for a reason, because we can overcome it, and because we do have the strength innate within us to overcome it. And now we may not see that when we are first faced with these challenges and these experiences, but maybe these experiences are coming to us so that we can finally see our strength and finally see our power and see what we are freaking capable of. Ooh! Because we are all capable of miracles and magic. And I feel like so many people have seen that through my life, and so much of my community and my audience has seen me overcome these unsurmountable odds, like living through what I lived through in the hospital, which we're going to talk about next week, and just overcoming these experiences that our ego mind perceives as impossible and insane and like crazy, but I was able to overcome them, and you all have been able to overcome them too. And I think that's why you're drawn into my content and into receiving what I have to say, because there is a part of you within you that knows that you are also strong and that you are also capable of overcoming whatever challenges you may be faced with. And that if you see the strength in me, it's because you hold that strength within you too. So, yeah. And another side of this fear and this wanting to control life that I really wanted to talk about that really came to light for me on Monday through the 9/9 portal, which that portal was literally one big purge and release of the anger and the grief that I have been holding within me for almost 28 years, truly. And this anger and this grief has really been rooted in my just feeling very afraid and unsettled in the state of consciousness of humanity at this time, and just being very unsettled by the unconsciousness and the programming and the lifestyles that humanity has been forced into, and not fully understanding this and seeing it from a soul perspective, but all this programming that I was also receiving sort of like gaslighting me and telling me that what I was feeling and what I was seeing wasn't true and was false and etc. But the more I've awakened, the more I have seen that humanity is in a very unconscious, dysregulated, and programmed state. And a lot of my fear and anger has been this anger at our ability to just submit to this, to submit to this programming, to submit to these authority figures who do not have our best interest at hand, who are not pro-life. Like, a lot of the powers that were have been pro-death and pro-decay and destruction. They do not support life. They support decay and destruction. I'm not going to go too far into that, but truly I was able to see on Monday that I have been very afraid and very unsettled by the lack of consciousness running through humanity, by the dysregulation of emotions by those around me and by all of humanity, and just very unsettled by the programming that we have been given. And it has caused me to adopt a very fighting and very aggressive mentality a lot of the time when it comes to these themes. Like, when I'm faced with the unconsciousness of another, it's made me just angry and just push them away and just totally sort of like be rude to them and be mean to them. And the same goes for those who were heavily programmed and those who had very dysregulated emotional states. It caused me to just fight them and to just really push them away and just be very aggressive and angry towards them. And that's not something that I want to uphold moving forward, because I have been in those states. And I think that a lot of that anger has been anger at myself for submitting to unconsciousness and further dysregulating my own emotions and furthering my programming because of fear of individuating and because of fear of the unknown and of the uncertainty of life. And so the more I've been able to see myself in the shoes of these people that were making me so frustrated and so angry and just in such a state of despair, it's really helped me to come full circle and accept them where they are. Because if I can go from a very dysregulated, unconscious, and programmed state to a very self-aware, almost enlightened, conscious, and working on becoming in a regulated state, if I can make that transition, then I do believe that anybody can. Not that I'm special, but if one person can do that and can go on this journey of awakening and expanding consciousness, healing and regulating the emotions and nervous system, and deprogramming the self, anybody can do that. And so I've really shifted away from my anger at these situations and dynamics on Earth and have stepped fully into the possibility of what is and of what people can become. And that has been a beautiful, beautiful journey in and of itself. Because Monday was a very difficult day for me, and I just felt all of this just sacred rage coming up within me. And I wound up projecting a lot of it onto someone who means a lot to me. And after doing so, I removed myself from the situation and went on a walk. And once I got into the woods, I could feel I had so much anger to release. So I picked up a stick and I started just slamming it on the ground and channeling my rage into this sort of rage ritual, which helped a lot. But as I was doing that, this big creature started moving in the woods, and I didn't feel afraid. It made me feel bad that my anger was then spilling out and was affecting the peace of the nature and the environment around me. And that fully brought me into presence and self-awareness and caused me to really, really start to regulate myself. So I sat there in the woods, and within a few minutes, actually, a girl deer came. That's who I had scared away. She came almost right up to me, was like from here to where, a little bit beyond where my phone is. And she started eating leaves on a tree like a cute little kitty. It was so cute. And it was such a healing moment. And it showed me that just because I am angry and because I disturb the peace and because I push people away doesn't mean I have to stay in that dysregulated state forever. And it really, really showed me the power of consciousness, that when whatever you focus on, you grow and you exacerbate. So if you want to focus on your anger and really exacerbate it, it's going to get worse. But if you just take yourself back to presence, recognize that you had a release, that you were expressing a certain emotion, but that you can bring yourself back to peace and back to balance in just a matter of minutes. Enough to attract over a doe who feels safe enough to sit there and graze right in front of you. And it was such a magical experience. Like, I felt my heart opening. I felt like the worst was over and that now was time to rebuild and to move forward based on what I've learned and based on who I know myself to be. And I was able to go home and clear my projections and to apologize, and everything was cleared and was brought back to balance. And I really, truly feel like since then, I have been continuing on this disillusionment process. However, I've developed a newfound state of trust, a trust in spirit, a trust in life, and a trust that I am supported and I am guided, and that everything that comes my way is coming my way because I can handle it and because it is meant for me in some way or another. And I have really just seen this week that if we spend our lives avoiding discomfort and avoiding tension, waiting for everything to be handed to us and waiting for everything to be perfect and great so that we can take action, when we're stuck in that waiting, we get nowhere in life. And when we're stuck in that avoidance of discomfort, we get nowhere. We just freeze and we just stay stuck exactly where we are. And every single time I'm preparing to film something, these podcasts, my other shorter YouTube videos, even small reels, I feel that discomfort and I feel that tension because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and I am stepping into the unknown. Oftentimes I have an idea of what I want to say, but I am fully surrendering to the stream of consciousness that wants to flow through me in that moment. And so every time I am going to create something, I feel discomfort, I feel tension. And I used to label that tension and that discomfort as unsafe because I didn't understand it. And life was sort of telling me that discomfort is bad and it's unsafe and that you're supposed to withdraw back into the comfort zone when you feel it. However, that's not the case. Discomfort is just a sign that you're stepping into the unknown and that you're stepping out of what's familiar in your comfort zone and stepping into the realm of possibilities and the realm of magic and possibilities. We'll leave it at that. And so I used to label that discomfort as unsafe, and that right there is what has kept me from starting this podcast. 6 years of feeling that discomfort and withdrawing back into the comfort zone has kept me from doing this for 6 whole years. And so let this be a lesson for you that whatever it is that you want to do, it's going to give you discomfort, and you're going to feel fear when you're stepping into that unknown. But if you can lean into that tension, and if you can feel the fear and do it anyways, chills, you will open yourself up to so much magic and so much expansion on the other side of it. And you will feel so good about yourself. And that is what breeds strength and breeds courage, is that trust in yourself to be able to feel that fear and to just move forward anyways, because that fear starts to dissipate within a few seconds, maybe a minute at tops, maybe a few minutes sometimes. It eventually begins to dissipate, and you just step fully into that flow state of consciousness, and you feel so good on the other side of it. And as a result of that, so now I am able to lean into that discomfort and to stay with my commitments that I do want to release a podcast every week, every Friday. And even if it is challenging, and even if I am moving through a lot, the more I release control and just show up and lean into that discomfort and just really show up with an intention to share and add value and to create an experience that uplifts and inspires and expands others, that tension does dissipate, and dissipates into a miraculous, magical expansion and feeling of alignment and feeling of flow that cannot be artificially created. And that is only experienced through that courage to step into the unknown. And how about you guys? I'm curious if you feel called to leave in the comments situations where you've been being blocked by fear, where you know you want to take a leap of faith, but there's this fear blocking you. Share about it in the comments, and maybe share how you're going to try to lean more into that tension this week to come out on the other side expanded. And another thing that's really coming to me in the moment as I'm filming this, something that I've also been really working through this week, is that need to control paired with these perfectionist tendencies and outlooks on life. And part of the reason why I do think that I hold a bit of a perfectionist mentality is because I don't want to waste time, and because I see such value in very balanced and very well put together experiences and circumstances. And so, for example, when I was going to film this video, I was faced with a lot of imperfections that I have had to move through in order to deliver the value and in order to show up and just let this be an extension of me. So when I first went to film, I had my door open right here, and it's pretty much double doors with a screen door behind it, and my kitty kept climbing on the screen. And I was sitting there like, oh, what am I gonna do? This is not perfect. So I closed the door, and whatever, that eased that problem. Then as I was filming, blue jays started yelling super loud, and loud cars were going by, helicopters, a chipmunk squeaking its ear off, which you've probably seen. And I've also had about 3 chipmunks frenzying around me looking for peanuts, because everyone else in the house just dishes out peanuts constantly to the chipmunks. And all of these perceived imperfections that I had no control over, they were definitely getting to me as I was filming this. And I've had to take some pauses and kind of like let the interference move. But I've really seen that if I can just show up fully and authentically, because it's who I am and because it's what I want to do and it's how I show up on the earth plane. We got some chipmunks fighting. Because I've been able to just show up and not focus so much on that imperfection, it's eventually gone away, and this video has still come about as a result. So I feel like the more we do try to control things and the more we focus on the imperfections, it takes us out of that flow and out of that stream of consciousness. And when we can just like allow those things and just allow the message to stand in and of itself and not worry about the little bird squawks or the chipmunk squeaks or the little distractions and imperfections, and just allow it to unfold, it just does. And it can open us up and lead to little nuggets of wisdom that we may not have seen before. Because I feel like my perfectionist tendencies were also highlighted as I was filming this. And I don't want to convey that we all need to strive to bring all of these unconscious areas into consciousness and everything needs to be a certain way. I feel like my path has just been one of just, moving forward and bringing this unconsciousness into light and releasing judgments and all of that, and seeing that everything is innately perfect and that everything just is. And it really is only my judgments projected onto those things that makes them imperfect. So the more you can just honor whatever experiences are coming to you without really like letting the negativity of the imperfections and of the losing control get to you, you can really come out on the other side and create a beautiful work of art. And so the last point that I really want to make for today's episode would be that we have all struggled and experienced the effects of unconscious, emotionally dysregulated, and programmed in a programmed society. We've all experienced these effects of this kind of society, and that's what's gotten us to be where we are now. And so I invite you to uphold this perspective that it is truly up to us to become conscious, to become regulated, and to free ourselves from the programming that we have been given, so that life does not need to continue on this way, and so that we don't need to continue passing down these same states of being and these states of suffering to future generations. Because when we take full responsibility for our lives, we take our power back, because with power comes responsibility. And we cannot have power if we are not responsible for it. So that means that when we become responsible for our lives, we have full power over our lives. And we can direct our life in whichever direction we want to go. And so the more we take our power back and regulate our emotional states, become self-aware, become aware of the systems that have been in place and how it has been influencing us, the more we can co-create a new world, and we can pass down these states of being and this inner knowing to future generations that we are powerful beings and we are capable of so much. And that things like discomfort and things like fear and pain, they are not bad and they are not to be avoided. They are actually to be leaned into and embraced and accepted for what they are. And so I think I'll leave it at that. I am sending you all so much love. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, take what resonates and leave what does not. And I will see you guys next week for an amazing episode where we'll pick back up where we left off last week with my story, with my coma dreams and all of those crazy transcendental experiences. So I'm wishing you all the best and most balanced week you may have. And I'm going to keep rambling because I just love talking to you guys, and this is just what I love doing. So yeah, I'm going to end it here. Peace out, much love, and namaste.